Hey, yo, what up? Welcome back. This is not a podcast. It's just my thoughts with Rob Markman. It's Monday, December 1st, man. I hope all of y'all had a great weekend, a great holiday, Thanksgiving, family time for all those who celebrate. It's crazy to believe that it's just one more month and then we're in 2026, man. So, we got to lock in. We're going to finish this year strong. Shout out to everybody who's been watching and supporting all year. Want to get right into it today, right? Cash Cobain. Want to talk about Cash Cobain. Over the weekend, he went to his IG stories and he posted and said that he's the most copied artist in New York ever, and not just the music. Cash is a producer and artist. For those who don't know, is a producer and artist who, he's really leading New York's younger generation and outside of New York, but in New York, it's a wave and it's spreading. So he's really leading that younger generation with his sound. He's from the Bronx. For sure. What was his big record with Bass Swag? I know you heard it for sure. Spelled Fisher. with extra R's, but for sure is the record. That was a big record. He also had that record Problem where he sampled Layla, who's Mos Def's daughter. That's just not my problem. He sampled that. He made it into his own joint too. Put mad people on there. Had Fabulous on there. Big Sean, Kenzo B, etc. It was like a long 7-minute posse cut. He did Dunk Contest is a Cash Cobain song, and then the remix we talked about on this channel, the remix to Dunk Contest was Grippy with J. Cole. We talked about Grippy with J. Cole. We're not gonna go there again. He did Attitude with Don Toliver and Charlie Wilson. These are big records. Like he's involved in big records. He did Somebody Loves Me Part 2 with Drake, which just came out a couple of months ago with Drake and Party Next Door. So Cash, I'm just naming a few joints, but he definitely has a wave. He definitely has a sound. He's absolutely copied. So, I get his right to feel how he feels. But so this is just how my mind works. I seen his thing. I'm like, well, who is the most copied artist in NY ever? And it made me think about this guy. Maybe y'all heard of him. His name is Sean Carter. Jay-Z. Maybe you heard of him. And it made me think of all the rappers who sounded like Jay, and I'm gonna run that down. And is Jay the most copied ever? I don't know. It's all like subjective. Like you gotta really how do you quantify all the sound alikes? Or the people who kind of get lumped into a Cash Cobain sound alike or a Jay-Z sound alike. Big definitely had, when Shine came out, Gorilla Black, there was a gospel artist by the name of BBJ who sounded like Big. So when you're hot, it happens. It just is what it is. So this is not even to refute what Cash is saying. Again, I think Cash has the right to say what he wants to say. But how my mind works, it made me think of Jay-Z. And then it made me think of all his sound alike. So we're going to run it down. I wish I could play the music for you. You know how YouTube does me. So I'm gonna put the links in the description. You tell me how many of these you remember. Maybe I put you on to something, or maybe there was something that I'm missing. So please, man, let's have fun with this one. Like, subscribe, comment, hype, do all of that stuff, and we're just gonna have fun with it. All right. So first, there was an artist by the name of Bathgate, who was coming up in the 90s in New York City. He was on DJ Clue mixtapes. He worked with Just Blaze early, actually, before he took off with roc-a-fella. So heavy on the mixtape scene, heavy in the streets in New York. In 2000, he was actually featured on DJ Clue's Professional 2 album. That was Clue's actual retail album that was released on roc-a-fella, rapping over LL Cool J's I Shot Ya remix. Drew so many comparisons to Hove, just off of his vocal tone and things like that. But Bathgate was number one right off the bat, right? Then there was Sacario. If y'all remember Sacario, he's from Washington Heights in New York. Most people know him from Angie Martinez. Angie Martinez had that big joint in, I think it was '01, If I Could Go, with Lil Mo. Y'all remember that record? Sacario was the guy rapping on that record. But then Sacario dropped his own single called Live Big. Car Keys is what everybody called it, aka Car Keys. How everybody remembers it. And the Car Keys single was my shit. I ain't even gonna lie. And Sacario, they used to say Sacario sounded like Jay all the time, but that Car Keys single was my shit. Then he had the remix with Angie and Fat Joe on the remix. And definitely had himself a hit with If I Could Go. Car Keys was a New York mixtape mix show thing that had a moment. But all anybody could talk about when it came to Sacario was about how much he sounded like Jay. And looking back on it, he did, but there was some things that was his own in there too, right? Next up, we're gonna talk about Angelous, Brooklyn rapper Angelous. I remember he was spotlighted on MTV Mixtape Daily, and back in the days, this is before I worked at MTV, and he immediately was compared to Jay based off of his vocal tone and how he constructed his bars. Like immediately, right off the bat, like he couldn't really escape it. Out of like Bathgate and Sacario, like Angelous was probably the most flagrant, the most well known. Like there was something about Sacario, and if you heard him talk, you're like, well, that's just kind of also his vocal tone. Bathgate had been developing that style for years too, and I think just the more popular Jay got, it was like, I'm not saying Bathgate bit off of Jay, but the more popular Jay got, the more his sound became ubiquitous, and the more you looked at Bathgate because he was less popular, like, nah, that's the copy of what we know to be popular, right? So I'm not saying that all of these guys or any of these guys straight up ventured out to sound like Jay, but when Angelous came, it definitely was like, nah, bro. Like Angelous definitely got it the worst. It was definitely like, nah, you had, because at this point too, this is Jay is at his height. This might be '02. This is like post Blueprint. So Jay is at his height. You know what I'm saying? And super ubiquitous. And it's like, nah, bro, this sounds too close. So Angelous, out of everybody, I feel like Angelous got it the worst. Immediately he was compared to Jay, based off his vocal tone and how he constructed his bars. He just couldn't really escape it. And then at a certain point, he started to lean all the way into it. I remember he did a freestyle over Blueprint 2, the song Blueprint 2, and unleash the flutes on him, Guru, that beat. And purposely, like, he was in Jay's cadence. He was, it was kind of like a frustration freestyle, like, oh, okay, y'all saying I sound like Jay, watch this, and really super leaned into it. So Angelous, I feel like, but at the same time, same thing that makes you laugh makes you cry. So Angelous got a bunch of attention because he sounded like Jay, and then a bunch of criticism because he sounded like Jay, and ultimately it just didn't go. Noe is the next one. Noe from Baltimore, part of Jim Jones' Bird Gang crew, if y'all remember that. He started actually he started in Baltimore, but he was writing for Diddy behind the scenes. He wrote Puff's verse on Danity Kane's Showstopper, I believe. Then he linked with Bird Gang. They say that he was turned down by a lot of A&Rs because he sounded too much like Jay. But then he linked with Jim Jones and linked with Bird Gang. He did the hook on Bird Gang Money. Y'all just clean my fancy car, but not my fancy clothes. Every owner in the hot spot know we got the bar. It's Bird Gang Money. That joint, right? And when he sung, he didn't really sound like Jay, but then when he rapped the verses, you could hear the similarities crazy. And I like Noe. But it was no question he sounded like Hov. He had the verse on Bird Gang Money, so the hook was like cool. And then when he comes in with the verse, it's like, oh shit, this sound like Hov. He had another joint, Oopsie Daisy. He was on a lot of joints with Jim, the whole MOB era mixtape, and when they dropped that album on Koch, there was a big push for Noe. But the thing that most people was like, yo, he sound like Hov. And then lastly, we're gonna go HD. HD. This is more recent. This was like a few years back, maybe like 5-6 years ago. There was a Brooklyn rapper emerging named HD, and he had a joint called Ghetto Sunday. And the talk was, again, like, and he's a young cat, or he was a young cat then. He's obviously grown since then, and he still does music, but looked very young, baby face, really kind of developing his style, and sounded like a young Jay-Z. And people were amazed by it, but also, like, you got to think about it. 5-6 years ago, the sound in New York had changed. I mean, where were we 5 or 6 years ago? This is drill, probably still, or this is post Bobby Shmurda. This is maybe just at the beginning of the K Flocks and like real, like hardcore drill shit. So for a young cat to come in and kind of maybe sound like a little more thoughtful, a little more like looking at the game or just the street or the neighborhood or circumstances from a bird's eye view, it was very like felt beyond his years, but then sounded just like Jay. Sounded just like Jay did when Jay was first starting. So cat named HD, joint called Ghetto Sunday. I'm gonna put the link in the description. And he still does music, but it was those early comparisons to Jay that had people talking. It's funny, fondly. It wasn't more so, okay, when Angelous is doing it because Jay is at his height, people look down on it. When HD came in, I think people were more amazed and was like, this is cool. There was definitely some people like, nah, I ain't jacking this. But there was definitely people who was like, oh, this is cool, because you look at it with nostalgia. But that's it, man. I just wanted to make that video with y'all to talk about the Jay-Z sound-alikes. For those who were there and remember that these are names you probably haven't heard in a while, it's gonna put you on a trip down memory lane. And for those who maybe were too young to remember or wasn't in New York, because a lot of this was like a New York thing and didn't really leave or blow up outside of New York, or wasn't really a talking point out of New York, you might have learned something. But that's it, man. But we're going to talk a lot more. Like I said, it's December, man. I'm going to turn up this month, man. I'm going to end this year strong and roll right into 2026, all right? So to the next one. Peace.